Hello, David McMillan here with the first in the series of short lives. Today, dealing with Yang Kyoungjong, and his story goes back to when he was 18 in 1938. Not a great place to be in the middle of Asia back then. Most people will know that Japan had territorial expansion in mind in the 1930s, and they worked their way north and south through China and through to Korea. Now, in 1938, young Yang, though that's going to get confusing, he was conscripted into the Japanese army. They needed soldiers, so Yang was sent north later on to Manchuria, to the Kwantung army. And he got into a battle. Yang found himself fighting against the Soviet Union in the Battle of Khalkhin Gol, well, the second of them anyway. This was part of Manchuria, but crossing over into disputed border areas. The Japanese were soundly defeated, well, defeated enough, even though almost 10,000 soldiers were lost on both sides. He was not dead, Yang, of course. He ended up, though, in a prisoner of war camp, a labour camp, and that could not have been much fun. Certainly not then, and maybe not much better now. In 1942, Yang was taken from the labour camp and put in the Soviet army. So he was back in uniform again, this time not for the Japanese, but for the Russians. And he was fighting their battles. I don't suppose it really mattered to him, except, well, he had the prospect of death either way. Maybe the food was a little better in the army. Who knows? Yang was sent west about 7,000 kilometers and fought in a battle for the Soviets. It was the Battle of Kharkov in the Ukraine, and it was 1943, so at that point it was touch and go. But the Soviets were defeated there too, and Yang was a prisoner of the Wehrmacht. The German army had troubles enough taking care of their Russian prisoners, and it wouldn't have been a good thing to be one. A lot of them were just surrounded by barbed wire and left to starve. But Yang, he ended up in a German uniform this time and was transported with his, I think it was the 709th Infantry Division, into France, because the Normandy invasion was about to happen, though he wouldn't have known it. Now, the story goes here that he was captured by Allied forces in Normandy, and he spent some time in a British prisoner of war camp. We have a picture here of young Yang, or rather tired-looking Yang, being checked out and on his way somewhere. And the story kind of has a happy ending with him going to the United States and doing well, settling, and living to the age of 72. So there's two parts to this. A Korean boy swept into an army he knew very little about other than fear, fighting battles and surviving, and also fighting a losing battle with the Soviet army. And Manchuria, Manchukuo as it was, not a particularly pleasant posting. Perhaps that's why he ended up there. Very cold at night. Nonetheless, he survives a labour camp. He gets taken into the Soviet army. None of that's a surprise. Look, an army needs men when the policy in the beginning, during the shortages, was to have one rifle for 5 men, and each man have 5 bullets. As the first one drops, the next man comes forward and picks up his gun and uses his 5 bullets if he can before he too is mown down, and so on. Anyway, Yang survived all this enough to get himself captured by the Germans. You know, they did have a division. The German army, the Wehrmacht, had a Asian division of people from who knows where they picked up in their Similarly wide expansion, but not into Asia. So, do you think I'm throwing doubt on this story? Well, we have this picture. And given the numbers of people who fought and were taken, imprisoned, taken out and used in whichever army was on top, I don't think it is at all surprising that there was a Yang. If this boy is young, I don't know, but look at his face. Have you ever seen somebody more tired of war games? In 3 uniforms. I guess having to pick up bits of more than 3 languages. He's had enough of war, and if there really was a Yang that was kicked about from one side of the world to another, this could be him. That part of his life short, and I only hope that he didn't die of TB or something on his way to the United States. But I'm always an optimist. Back with another short life, when I can think of one.